was the greatest of all batsmen. He was perhaps the greatest sportsman the world has seen. Ill health and carping criticism could not diminish him. The most famous and the most admired Australian of all time, Don Bradman, is preeminent amongst ESPN's legends of cricket. It was the most famous dismissal in the history of cricket. In 1948, Don Bradman strode to the crease to play the last of his 80 Test match innings.
Then a special chair on the field.
He needed just 4 to finish, with a career average of 100. Incredibly, the greatest batsman of all time finished with a duck.
I was not aware that it was going to be my last innings. Neither was I aware at that stage that I only wanted 4 runs over a Test match average of 100. And it was a pretty emotional occasion because the Yardley called all his fieldsmen around and they all gave me 3 cheers before I took block.
I was up the other end, Eric Hollis, and bowled him a beautiful leg spinner. Then he bowled in the wrong and right on about the same spot. And Don played forward, and he might have got a tiny bit of edge, but it was well delivered and it hit the off stump.
The whole team was hoping that he would settle in and make one of his big scores, because he certainly deserved it. He'd been a wonderful player for Australia, marvellous ambassador for Australia too, and I think he deserved to make a reasonable score anyway in his last appearance on English soil, where he'd made so many runs in the past.
I was a trifle unlucky in the sense that I played at the ball and actually hit it on the inside edge of the bat and pulled it onto the stumps. But I think if I had taken a little bit more care, I might have got away with it. But that's one of the things that happens in the game of cricket.
Even casual followers of cricket know precisely Bradman's final average, 99.94, almost 40 runs higher than the next best, Graham Pollard. But what manner of batsman was this run-making phenomenon?
Don Bradman was the greatest cricketer I ever saw, and I would say that he had the greatest repertoire of aggressive, damaging strokes that ever a batsman carried. In fact, I am quite certain he was the best cricketer ever to walk onto a cricket ground in any part of the whole wide world.
You're still one of the best players of your era. When you look at Bradman's accomplishments, I mean, it was in an era of, the uncovered wickets thing was astonishing. That, you know, you couldn't even imagine some of the tracks that, you know, he must have played on, and, you know, the poise and the temperament, composure, tenacity that he must have displayed.
The thing that stood out above anything else was his footwork. I never saw anybody get into position or move his feet around as much as Bradman did, and he always seemed to have, you know, like, he could actually make a movement with his feet and then realise he was in the wrong position and change again. I don't know of any player I ever saw that could move his feet twice. It's like the supreme footwork of a boxer.
My personal theory about Bradman is that he was so good because he's so damn smart. He's really intelligent, really works things out, has great attention to detail. Just a very, very sharp mind, very focused, very clever, and I think he just concentrated on what was at hand, and he worked things out in a very intelligent way.
Bradman was also a superb fielder at cover or near the boundary. But it was his prolific run-getting that set Bradman apart, the almost near certainty that he was going to perform, even in a time of great uncertainty.
We didn't believe any ball couldn't be scored off. I think that's the thing. You know, you get blokes out there and they say, well, if I've got to wait an hour for a ball to score off, well, I'll wait. But they never think about that every ball in an over can be scored from. I think that was Bradman's philosophy, really.
Bradman's importance to the people of Australia during the Depression was enormous, and I think one of the factors behind that was that he gave to them a sense of certainty. at a time when there was absolutely no certainty in their lives.
As a young boy, Don Bradman famously honed his skills, batting with a single stump and golf ball.
I used to play away for ages out there on my own, and it was just fun. It never entered my head that I was probably training my eyesight and coordinating my movements. That didn't register at all in those days. Now, of course, I can realise what the significance of it was.
I met him first in 1925, long before either one of us had ever been heard of in top-class cricket. Appropriately enough, we met in the middle of a country cricket ground at Bowral. He batted throughout the day, which was about 4 hours play, and at the end of that, he had 234 not out.
After success in grade and shield cricket, Bradman played his first test match in Brisbane in 1928. Much was expected of him. After making scores of 18 and 1, Bradman was dropped for the next test. Recalled for the third, he made 79 and 112.
Australian cricket was desperately in need of young players, and Bradman was probably the pick of a group of young players. Archie Jackson was another one, and Stan McCabe was a couple of years younger. So that when Bradman came into the team for the first test and failed twice, I think there was a great disappointment that Bradman was he was going to be the next big thing. So Bradman then came back into the side for the third test and scored 79 and 112. And I think the significance of the century in the second innings can't be underrated, because that was the youth of Australia, if you like, the next generation rising up.
In England in 1930, there were those who doubted Bradman's technique on seaming wickets.
We went over as, I suppose you'd say, the underdogs of that tour. We'd been badly defeated in 28-9 in Australia. And we were a very young side, hadn't had much experience under English conditions. I think it was generally thought that we would lose the 1930 series. But I believe our players got used to the conditions quickly, and we improved rapidly as the tour went on.
Bradman's performances in England that season were astonishing. He made 974 runs in the series, including a world record 334, with 309 of those scored in a single day.
Bradman made cricket history on his first tour of England in 1930. As a boy, not yet past his very early 20s, he scored 974 test runs in that series, a score which still stands.
He had a bat in his downstairs, which was the bat he got 2-5-4 against England, which he always reckoned was his greatest innings. And honest to goodness, there was a dent in the middle of the bat. You couldn't believe that a bat could have a hole in the centre of it from just making that constant contact right where it should be.
In England there, he made such an enormous reputation that English journalists thought that England's chances of recovering the Ashes were absolutely nil until something was done to deal with Bradman's enormous ability.
After Bradman had dominated series against the West Indies and South Africa, England arrived in Australia in 1932, armed with a plan to defeat him: bodyline.
There's been a lot of suggestions as to what the prime motivation for bodyline was, but really there's no doubt that it was to stop Bradman. The England hierarchy had come to the conclusion that if Bradman was going to score average 100, that they were going to struggle to win. So they came up with this tactic of basically bowling at the body with 5, 6, 7 people on the leg side.
Once I saw the personnel of the team which had been chosen to come to Australia, I said immediately, we are in for a barrage of bumpers on this tour. But at that time, we never had any idea at all that it would be used in conjunction with the leg side field.
Bodyline was successful. inasmuch as Bradman's average suffered, and he made just 1 century for the series. He averaged an excellent but less than superhuman 56.57.
We were very upset, of course, with the tactics they were using. The difficulty was how you're going to counteract them. You see, with 7 fieldsmen on the leg side and the ball is being directed towards your body, there is virtually nowhere to go. There's nothing you can do. It was obvious that it was something that was not going to last. It only had a limited life before it stopped. And we were all very relieved, I think, when the season was over and we got back to normal cricket again.
In 1934, Bradman struggled in the first 3 tests before making 304 and 244 in the final 2.
Throughout those early games, Bradman showed a great strain. He didn't play like the Bradman we knew. We came into the 4th test at Leeds. Bradman went in and the first ball he took, he stepped in and he hit it straight past wide of mid-on, the best shot in the whole game, and as soon as he played it, you could hear the sigh of relief in the Australian dressing room. They got, he's right, he's back.
Before the Australians left England, Bradman was felled by an attack of appendicitis and then by peritonitis. For a time, grave fears were held for his life.
I was very unwell when I got to England, and I was still very off colour in the early matches of the tour. I knew I wasn't right, but nobody could find out what was the matter with me. This was really the background why I was not succeeding in the early matches. The diagnosis was that I had appendicitis, and it turned into peritonitis. And in those days, you didn't have penicillin, you didn't have the modern antibiotics, and it was a very serious business.
In 1935, with his health improved, Bradman moved to Adelaide and began learning the stockbroking business.
I was always concerned that I did not want to lead the life of a professional cricketer, dependent on cricket for a living. I wanted to get some business career of my own that was outside sport. And Mr. Hodgetts, who was a member of the Australian Cricket Board and a leading figure in the South Australian Cricket Association, approached me and said if I came to Adelaide, he would give me a contract which would guarantee me a position with his firm for 6 years, would allow me time off to play cricket, and would teach me the business of stock and share market. Now, this was an offer that was too good to refuse.
Bradman was made captain for the 1936-37 Ashes series. He lost his first 2 tests as skipper, but then led a remarkable fight back to win the series 3-2. He quickly earned a reputation as an outstanding strategist.
I think he was the best tactical captain I've ever played under. He knew all about the opposition batsman. He placed his field accordingly. He remembered things that happened in previous matches. And when the new ball was due, the bowlers were rested and ready, and he had a wonderful appreciation of the conditions. I'd say in the vernacular that he just never missed a trick on the field.
In the 1939-40 season, a record 77,000 went to see him play in a Sheffield Shield match in Melbourne. Huge crowds followed Bradman's every innings.